All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for UB CoLab's kickoff for the spring 2025 semester of its MasterClass series. I apologize for my voice, but currently have the start of semester plague, as we all might be experiencing. My name is Andrew Lavoie. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Dan Greco, who is the owner and strategy coach for Most Alive LLC. And he's going to be joining us this evening to share some really great insights from his career as an entrepreneur and really help you get your own projects off the ground. So without further ado, Dan, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and thanks everybody for being here, taking this in however you are. I see a couple in the audience, David, Katie. If I could just get a hello, a thumbs up, or something, so I know I'm not just talking to myself for the recording, that would be awesome. I see David coming on camera. Thank you. There's a thumbs up. Katie, the thumbs up digitally. All right, perfect. Thank you both. And everyone else who's watching this later on. Hello to you. So, as Andrew mentioned, I have my own company called Most Alive. I'm going to be pulling up slides in a minute, but I'll do a quick background on me. I also have experience in the corporate world, worked at M&T Bank here in Buffalo for 8 years in different strategy roles, leadership, operations. So basically figuring out how we're going to get things done, putting a plan in place and working with teams to get things done, mostly around the customer experience and the employee experience and how to improve those. I also, during that time, was a part of and eventually the leader of our entrepreneurship resource group. So trying to bring entrepreneurial tendencies to the bank and to our employees. And that really got me on the entrepreneurial track and eventually took the experience I had at M&T, left and did some soul searching and found my way to starting my own company where I, as was mentioned, I'm a strategy coach. So work with people on their strategies for their business, for their careers. You got somewhere you want to go, not seeing a path to how to get there or want to get there, more clarity, more confidence, more focus, more speed. That's what I love to help people with. So can definitely talk about that more and probably should as we're talking today about defining the problem that you're solving as an entrepreneur. So I should be able to define mine pretty well. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. You guys can let me know or ask any questions as we go. So I'm working on the screen share. Turns out I can't talk and do that at the same time. So bear with me just a second and we will get started. So we're going to talk about defining the problem today, which is almost always, if not always, where you want to start as an entrepreneur. The reason for that, you'll probably hear me say a bunch of times, is generally speaking, people aren't paying you for ideas. They're not paying you for cool technology. They're paying you to solve a problem for them. So the foundation of your great solution is inherently a problem, right? Solutions are there to solve problems. So without a problem, what good is your solution? So that's what we're going to talk about. We'll walk through in the beginning some common pitfalls that either I've seen personally or I've read about or combination of both to give you a sense of the what not to do. But then in the back half, we'll get into what to do, walk through some best practices, some tips, some things to keep in mind, and then do a little activity together to bring it home and see what questions you have. So these categories are unofficial, things that I came up with today. But the first category of what not to do or what to be careful of at the very least is what I'm going to call the two cools. So this is the first one I'll show. Does anybody know, either in the chat or you want to shout it out loud, what product or offering I am referring to here? It's a little bit of a riddle to get us started. The big classes, we got Google laser eye surgery. Fine guess. This gentleman might need that, but that is not actually what it is. So there was something a few years back called that Google was offering or working to offer Google Glass. Google Glass, these were augmented reality or virtual reality glasses that you could wear that you could just kind of look at and the lenses would be like a screen for you. So not only could you see the world, but you could see essentially what's on your phone, like right there on the lenses without having to take your phone out and do things like that. Really cool technology, really awesome stuff as far as, innovation goes, entrepreneurship goes, but it didn't ultimately solve enough of a need that people had, right? People already had phones to do these things. People weren't really looking for a way to see things on their face. And so it fell through, especially at the price point that Google was offering it out, which I think one source I saw said was like $1,500. So ultimately, very cool technology, very innovative, very advanced. Didn't solve enough of a problem for people. There wasn't a use case for it. It didn't sell. Second one, maybe you may or may not, you likely have, I think, have seen Segways, but in the early 2000s, there was a ton of hype around this product coming out. It was going to revolutionize how people get around cities and change up the whole game. Again, really cool technology to keep people balanced in this position and what goes on with the equilibrium there. And there's still some products that are out there in use and things that look like this, but it didn't really take over the way that it was hyped up to or expected to. And again, same type of thing. People had bicycles, people had scooters, people had feet, public transport, all sorts of ways to get around that may not be perfect, but there wasn't enough of a problem or a pain for those people that this came in and solved and made much better, relieved that pain to an extent that they were going to pay, again, pretty expensive to have your own. So again, not that these are obsolete. You see these around a little bit, but they certainly didn't become a mass thing. Cool technology, not enough of a need, especially for the price point. And this last one's a personal story. Sorry if this slide makes you hungry. It does for me. But every holiday season, my best friend makes chocolate chip cookies with the spice cardamom in them. And I had never heard of it before that, but I see it a lot now. But if you know cardamom, it's pretty aromatic. I think personally, at least, that it's kind of like nutmeg or turmeric, like that type of thing, which to me doesn't go in a chocolate chip cookie. Others disagreed, but every year that my friend makes these and I accidentally bite into one, I go, "Oh, this is not good. This doesn't taste good to me." And he always responds, "But damn, this is such a good spice. It's such a quality spice. Do you know how expensive this bottle of cardamom is?" My problem was not around the quality of the ingredient, right? My problem was around the flavor. I want a delicious snack when I eat a snack. That's the quote unquote problem that I need solved as that user. He's telling me instead how expensive it is. It doesn't match my problem, right? That's obviously a silly example, but I think you'd be surprised how often entrepreneurs, and sometimes you maybe, with ideas, you think it's really cool, you think it's really good. If your customer doesn't, your job is not to convince them that you're right and they missed out or they missed it. Your job is to better understand what it is they're looking for, what it is they need from you, and adapt accordingly. So if my friend actually cared, which in this case he didn't, but if he actually cared, he'd be like, well, what kind of cookies do you like, right? Better understand my problem, not just tell me why his solution was really good. So your takeaway from this first batch of things not to do, said it a couple of times, but cool solutions without clear use cases don't sell. And the main place I see this these days, I think especially with students, but in general, is AI. People love talking about, I have an AI solution for this, or I'm going to use AI for that. I actually almost think if you have AI as part of your solution, you shouldn't even mention it, because if you're leaning on that as part of your selling point, you probably don't have a strong enough pitch around the problem that you're solving and the benefits that people get. The AI is maybe how you deliver it. I don't necessarily care how you deliver it. If I'm eating a delicious chocolate chip cookie, I might not care how it's made. I care that it solves my problem, that I like it, that it gets it done, the price point maybe. And then if somebody wants to know how I did it, I can tell them about the AI. But just be careful with that. You don't want to lead with how cool your solution is, because if it doesn't work for somebody, they're not really going to care, even if it's ingenious. All right. Second grouping that I see a lot from students, I'm going to call it the "you got the wrong one." And this a lot of times comes from people trying to be altruistic, trying to help the world, us younger people. And yes, even though you're in college and I'm in my 30s, I'm going to group us together and call us younger people. We want to make the world a better place. We want to do these social impact things, climate change, etc. This is for Miss Congeniality. Everybody's always trying to solve world peace in a beauty pageant. But the rub here is you, as an entrepreneur, need people to buy what you're selling. And a lot of times the people who you're trying to help and solve problems for aren't the ones who are going to pay you, right? So I saw a project once around improving water quality in, I think it was in Africa, possibly India. But either way, the people who really need that water, like I want to help too, you want to help, doesn't mean you can't help them. But in order to do it, you've got to find the problem that the people who are going to buy your solution to cleaner water have, right? So if those governments have a vested interest in having cleaner water for their people, what is that problem? And speak to that. Don't speak to the poor citizen who needs clean water. I agree. We can all agree on that. But when it comes to a business pitch or how you're going to craft your solution, yes, you want to solve that problem, but you've got to define your problem in a way that resonates with the people who are going to pay you for that solution. They may be linked, they may be connected, but you have to make that link and connection, not only in your pitch and your marketing, but in how you design the solution. It's got to pay off for the people who are paying. Another example of that is in the medical world. Saw a really good venture, and they did, I think, do this successfully by the time at least I was done with the engagement with them. But they were working on breast cancer screening technology that was more, it was a better experience for the people getting the breast screening. And it was also better technologically, that it could identify things, problems earlier than traditional technology. But again, let's say if they were just designing for the women's experience who are having the breast screening done, those women can't pay them directly for that machine. So that's not the pitch or the angle that you want to design that solution, and not the angle that you want to take your marketing. Who's going to buy that from you? Is it the doctor's office? Okay, why does the doctor care? What is the doctor's problem when it comes to breast screening that this is solving? And if it is that, hey, nobody comes here because the experience is so bad. So by making the experience better, doctor, you can then market to more women and customers and have more money coming in because you have a better experience, then that's fine, right? That's actually good because you've identified it as the doctor's challenge that is related to the patient's problem. That's great. But if you're trying to sell to doctors and all you're talking about and all you're focused on is the experience of the patient, if you're not making that connection, they may not make it either. Likely they won't. And so they likely wouldn't buy from you. So the takeaway here in the "you've got the wrong one" is solve a problem of who is going to pay you. And again, that doesn't mean you have to throw away your morals and only do those things. It just means you have to be focused in that direction, right? And you have to bring that in and not lose sight of who's paying you, what are you solving for them. Last bucket we'll talk about, I'm going to call these the classics. You may have heard about these, and if you haven't, but you keep going through programs like this, you will. These are pretty common, classic, maybe even famous stories over the years of times that the wrong problem either was solved or was almost solved. So this is a goofy video, but back in the day before automobiles, people got around in horse-drawn carriages. So horses determined, how fast you got somewhere. And Henry Ford, who ended up inventing, the assembly line in our early vehicles, he was quoted as saying, or at least is rumored, I should fact check it, I don't know if it's true, but the story goes that he said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have just said a faster horse, right? All they knew was horses, and they're like, yeah, I want to get to my buddy's house faster or wherever. I want a faster horse, right? And then people might have been figuring out how to work out the horses and do all these crazy things. He brought this whole new solution. So he got to be ingenious around the solution, but he targeted on the problem. Not that they were telling him they needed, or the solution that they were telling him they needed, but the problem they told him they had, right? I've got to get from A to B faster. Your customers might tell you, and so I want a faster horse. You can hear that and go, I hear that they want that, but I'm hearing their real problem underneath that is getting from A to B faster. I think I can do it even faster for them. Very similar concept. Way back in the day, like in the 90s, right? Pre-streaming and even pre-DVD, you had VHS, and they had this tape in there that was like a physical thing. And when the movie would play to one end, the only way to rewatch the movie was to rewind that tape all the way back to the beginning. So when you rented a movie from like Blockbuster or something, you would have to rewind it, or were asked to rewind it before taking it out so that the next person could start at the beginning. So again, if you ask people what they needed or wanted, I want to rewind faster because I don't want to sit there and push the rewind button and wait 5 minutes for it to the tape all the way across the thing. Now we have streaming, and rewinding is like in seconds. With DVDs, you could just skip scenes back to the beginning. You could start over. It's even faster than a faster rewind. But if you just ask people, hey, what do you want? What would make this experience better? Oh, I hate sitting around waiting. That's the problem. And I think I want it, or I want it to just rewind faster. That's the proposed solution. But the lesson for you guys here is you can listen to the customer's problems more than their proposed solutions. You really want to focus on what they're saying they need, what they want, what they hate about something, what's frustrating for them. All that's really good. And then you can design proposed solutions, which is not what we're going to talk about today. But that would be the next step. Getting yourself to a really good and well-defined problem is what tees you up to then start designing in your ingenious way and testing and learning the solution that's going to actually help that customer. So those are the buckets that I put it in. We had the three of them, right? The classics here, the you've got the wrong one, and the too cool. What questions do you guys have, or comments, times you've seen this at this stage?
Do you have any like systematic methods to determining if the solution that you come up with is more cost effective?
So that's probably out of the scope of today, so I'll touch on it a little bit, but I would keep an eye on future master classes about that. But if you're talking cost effective for you on the production side, David, yeah. So I think you want to budget that out, right? So mostly we talk about prototyping. So you start with like one version of the simplest thing you can make and see, what that would cost you to solve this problem. Before you produce thousands and thousands of them, you want to see if one works. Because if one doesn't work, what's the point of making thousands, right? So you keep your costs down that way. And then from there, you can project. Maybe you test 2, 3, or 4 different prototypes, see which one works the best, and then say, all right, this one, I made it this price. That's not going to be sustainable. It cost me $25 per thing. I can't charge people more than $20, so I would be losing money. How can I drive my costs down? And then you can do analysis on your own process there. Is that a helpful start? All right, cool. Thank you. What other questions? All right.
Any tips for the creative process for coming up with a solution to the problem?
Yeah, so that's we're going to get to that a little bit too, because I think once you have a clear problem, you can get to the solutions. This is where things like brainstorming come in. Little cheats I've used before is how would so-and-so do it? So if you think Google really does a great job with stuff, you love their products, you can just get yourself in that headspace by going, how would Google solve this problem? And just throw 5 ideas out there and don't worry how good or bad they are. You might also do like, what would the worst solution to this problem be? Like, again, just to get your brain stretched a little bit, have some fun with it, but also that can help you see like, yeah, if this takes longer, if this would be really bad, I want to make it go faster. How do I do that? So I think just those types of brainstorming. And then one other thing I'll mention to write down for another time, and if you want to check with me after on this, because it would probably take a deeper dive, but there's something called the balanced breakthrough model you can look up, and it's got 3 components. So desirability, viability, feasibility. And you can assess each of your brainstorm. Once you come up with your list of here's 10 or 20 potential solutions, score them all on those 3 things and make up your scale: high, medium, low, 1 to 10, whatever you want to do. But desirable is how much you think your customer wants it. Viable is how much money you think you can make on it. And feasible is how doable is it to build. And then you see which one has your best combined from there. Again, that one's going to be more when we get to the solutions, and we still got work to do to define the problem, David, but I like that you're asking questions, so I'm answering them. I don't care. We'll talk about whatever till Andy slaps me. All right. Anything else?
How do you find problems to solve?
Yeah, that one's great. So we're going to talk about that. So that one I am actually just going to save because I think it's going to come up in 2 minutes. And if you want to go deeper, let me know. So the why. Why identify a good problem? Starting with why is always a good idea. Anytime you're making a pitch, start with why. Anytime you have a company, why does that company exist? It's more powerful for people. It resonates. So in this presentation here, why identify a good problem? Because that is what people will pay you for, right? That is what I want you to take away from this. And that question David just asked is perfect. That's where I want you to land, because that's the first thing you should be asking. How do I find, what is a problem I want to solve? And how do I find one, right? So that's great. So how to do it, forgive this slide. I didn't get a chance to pretty it up the way I wanted, so it just looks like this. So let's talk about exactly what you just asked, David. How to identify a good problem. The first thing is to observe. So just look around, pay attention to your own experience. What frustrates you? That's always I think the place to start. And don't jump from here all the way to exactly how you're going to solve it, but it at least gets you curious, right? What can you be curious about? So for me, for example, I'll share where I have been. So I have this coaching business already, but in the last, I don't know, several months, I've gotten more frustrated, and I promise I'm not going to get too controversial here, but I've gotten frustrated with like fake news and, people seeing the world so differently through social media. And I feel like not being able to comb through information, whichever way they land, right, left, or middle, we're just not processing information the same way as a society. And that's crazy to me. So I thought, okay, that's a problem that I experience. Do other people experience it? And in conversations, which is the next one, it says interview. That's a little more formal when we get honed in, but you can start with just conversations. See, do other people feel that same pain, that same frustration? In my case, they did. So then I came up with, well, how could I do something about that? Where do I think that could be addressed? Where is the root of that problem really? Because it's not, in any particular figure who is maybe taking advantage of it, in my opinion. I think it's deeper than that. So I thought, okay, education. How are we teaching people how to process information? Okay, what could we do in the education field? What's already being done in the education field? And I started doing research of what organizations are out there teaching, things like media literacy or advocating for it. And then I reached out to a bunch of my teacher friends or administrative, folks who work in education. And instead of saying, here's my solution, do you want to buy it? I wasn't there yet. I think I've observed this problem. I want to talk to you to understand if you have this problem too, or your perspective on this problem. So I would ask them things like, what do you feel is your main goal as a teacher? And how do you feel you're able to accomplish that? What do you think gets in your way? What's your biggest challenge to executing that? And if they don't touch on media literacy throughout it, then a couple things could be the case. One, they may not have the problem that I think they do or thought they might. Or number two, maybe they're just not in that headspace, but you want to try not to lead them too much. But then I will say, what about something like media literacy? What would it take to teach that in your classroom? And they might just say, oh, I'd have to care. And they don't, but that's not what I heard. I heard all sorts of different things. And so that was my second step. So I started with my observations. Then I went and had conversations. And then from those conversations, I themed out what I had heard. And out of the 10 people I talked to, some people said one thing, some people said another, but most people kind of had this overlap around, we'd love to teach it, but we've got a lot we've got to do. We've got a lot we've got to teach. There's just not time, to be able to stop and create this whole new lesson when we're already being, drilled on how to do math, science, technology, all these things. We don't have time for that, but with the kids' behavior and all this stuff. So the theme that I heard out of that is they don't have time. So now the problem is not just the world doesn't know how to process information. The problem has gotten much more targeted to when it comes to education, teachers don't have time to prepare students for the media world that they live in. And then you can continue going deeper with that until it's more specific. Do they need worksheets? Do they need lesson plans? Do we need more teachers? Right? So that's the process I'm in the middle of right now, sort of on the side of my business, or potentially, having my business help in that space if it ends up being that there's a need for coaching. But right now I haven't heard that. So I can't just go take coaching because that's what I'm good at and that's what I do and plug it into the problem space, unless I'm hearing that that's what the problem is, that they need what I offer. So I'm trying to figure that out. And then the critical analysis part is sort of that last part. Once I hear the themes, that's where you start to brainstorm, David, what can I do about it? What are 10 ideas of how to address that? But first, I got to get real clear on what is the it that I'm trying to do something about, right? What is the problem that I want to solve in detail so that I can do something about it? Does that answer your question from a minute ago? Cool. All right. So we did the why, we did the how. Now this is the last bit before we actually get in and do it a little bit together on a couple examples. But what makes a good problem? Number one, we want it to be specific and clear. So again, if I just say the problem I'm solving is media literacy, the heck does that mean? Right? That's not specific. That's not clear enough to target and address. It can be a good start. It can be a theme, but specific and clear is, maybe what exactly do I want to achieve, or do I think people are falling short of? Yeah, I shouldn't say do I want to achieve, right? Because that's my personal opinion. What is it people are struggling with? What keeps people from having a sufficient media literacy rate or high media literacy rate? Those questions will help me get to a more specific and clear problem statement. Again, that second one, customer centric, this one's really important. It's really, I think, underlying all that we've been talking about, including that example I just mentioned, but it's got to be the customer's problem and from the customer's point of view. So you can't say, I want to solve climate change. That's great. A lot of us might, but who is the customer that's going to buy your thing, and how do you write that problem from their perspective, right? I want to help, solar energy companies have a hard time getting traction in certain populations. I want to help with that. Okay. How painful is it? That makes a good problem if it's very painful. So if people are really frustrated, they're obviously going to be more likely to do something about it, like buy a solution to it. If it's really, and think of pain in a few different ways. If you're lonely, if you're scared, if you're frustrated how long something takes you to do, how much money it costs, how inconvenient it is, all those things, try to assess when you're looking at problems, how painful is it? Because if it's just a little blip of pain, you better really hit on the rest of the stuff. Otherwise, I'm not sure how much people are going to pay for it. Similar with frequency. Now this one can be interesting. If I think of something like helping somebody buy a house, there's different professions involved in that, different offerings involved in that, and people aren't buying houses all the time. But that doesn't mean you can't solve the problem or that it's not worth solving, but you got to factor it in, right? So you're going to have to find a lot of clients. It's going to have to be a really common need, even if it only happens irregularly with everybody. Or each time you do make a sale, you've got to make a ton of money to make up for somebody who's a lot more high volume than you are, but maybe doesn't need to make as much per shot. So important to know, but the higher the frequency of the pain, like every single time I do this and I do it 5 times a day, I have a problem, then, again, we're creeping towards a problem that somebody's going to want solved. And then consequential, this one you'll see, salespeople use, you'll see, different marketers use especially, but it is real and fits into the problem that what are the consequences if I don't solve this problem, right? So what happens if, this is going to come maybe from my coaching perspective now, but working with a leader the other day who wants to grow her team, develop her team better, so that there's more bench strength there in her corporate world. And it's like, she's got a lot of other things that are a lot more urgent and maybe more painful, like when this problem arises or her boss calls her with a problem, this or that. But, so it might not be as painful or as frequent, but how consequential is it? Like, what happens if you don't develop your team at all and you have no backup? Well, yeah, then someday, I'm going to take a new job and the company's going to be in trouble. Or someday I'm not going to be able to be here and the company's going to be in trouble. So you want a problem statement that is clear. If it's not addressed, is something negative is likely to happen. And again, not all of these have to be a home run, but the more you can have something powerful and resonant with people, prospective buyers, because they have these problems, the stronger your problem statement is and the more likely they are to want a solution for it. All right, so I'll pause again there. What questions do you have at this point? Oh, good. All right. So we are going to get into a little activity here. I think, give me one sec. I'm just going to pause the screen share because, yeah, I think this is what I got. So I want to put some of this into practice, and let's flesh out a couple of different ideas and talk through maybe some things you've seen or some things you could imagine. And I want to hear from you guys how you would flesh out this problem statement. So get it more to a point of, what makes a good problem, that it's got these things. So let's talk about first a food delivery app. So you've seen these, we've seen pitches for them on campus before. If I just say a food delivery app, what problem is that solving? And you can start general and we'll refine it.
First thing that comes to mind with that is that there's already food delivery services, so I would need to come up with something that's more effective or better than what's already there.
Yep, that's a good thought. And even for this, let's think of the ones that are already there. How did they get there? What problem do they solve for people today? That without that app, people would have this problem again.
Driving, the convenience of like not having to go outside due to weather.
Yep. So which of the 5 on the screen does that apply to?
It's more customer centric, and I wouldn't say it's painful, but I would say it's like I mean maybe painful. I guess it depends on who it is.
Yeah, I think that fits under painful, and painful in the sense of, again, it could be frustration, inconvenience, inefficiency, all those things. But yeah, I think you're spot on. So it helps, a food delivery app helps people from having to drive. And just to get really specific from there, Katie, what's wrong with driving? Why is that painful for people? You're right.
Some people have disabilities and they aren't able to drive. There are some people that aren't able to drive due to health reasons or due to illness.
Mm-hmm. Is it only those people that a food delivery app is for?
No, it's for people who might feel who have any anxiety or any mental related concerns related to driving.
Yep, could be. Good stuff. Thank you. David, who
I
else?
also find driving just to be annoying. Like, if I don't have to do it, I would prefer not to. I could save money on gas if I didn't do that. The food delivery service covers the cost of gas, and I don't have to pay for that. Savings in my pocket.
Yeah. So, Katie, you mentioned anxiety in there. David, you mentioned you just don't feel like it's an inconvenience. So we got anxiety, we got inconvenience, we've got money, how much you're spending to drive. And so all that converts to, what these food delivery apps can charge you, right? Because David might say, I'm paying for the convenience. I can actually tell you my girlfriend has kids and has a business of her own and is very busy and is always talking about, I know it's more expensive than going to the store, but it is so worth it for me to save the time to have it just show up at my doorstep than have to drive. So she is paying to have the problem of her inconvenience solved. So you talked about putting that from a customer-centric perspective, Katie. That was really good. This one maybe not so consequential, other than you're going to continue to have that same issue, that same inconvenience for as long as you don't get this solved. That one's good. Another one we see a lot in student pitches and things is solutions to parking on campus. So tell me about like the problem with parking on campus.
There's not enough parking lots.
Not enough parking lots. Right. So now use one of these on screen here, specific or clear, customer centric, to apply that to buff it up more. And David, I think Katie walked away, so it's on you. Good luck.
I'm going to say, I don't think there's a problem with parking on campus. There's parking lots everywhere. But I guess if it is a problem for people, I'm not. Problem with parking on campus. I guess it's more of a painful thing because, sometimes people are just really bad at planning their time. So, if they're searching for a parking spot, then they're wasting time and being late to class. It's just not a good thing because you're paying for that.
Yeah.
It's also pretty frequent because classes are every single day or every other day.
Yeah. Very frequent.
So there's definitely some consequence to it for not having enough parking or not being able to find a parking spot.
Yeah.
I suppose the good solution would be, I actually saw this in a parking garage, is they have this camera system that can monitor open parking spots, and we could develop an app so that people could see on their phone where an open parking spot is, and then go there so they can better plan out their time.
Yeah, that would be cool. But to press on this, because this is a couple things you both said is perfect to work with. So, Katie, you said the problem is there's not enough parking. Who has that problem? That's not a trick.
Students would have more of that problem than faculty would.
Okay. So who, if you made, David, let's just roll with what you just said. If you made the camera system with the app on people's phones, who would have to pay for that?
Actually, it'd be the college, but we could charge a user fee.
Right. But at least at first, and this is the why I brought it up, because it goes to that you got the wrong one category we talked about earlier. A lot of students come up with these great solutions for this student problem, but then they're selling to the college. The college doesn't have the problem unless the students are making such an uproar that they're not going to that college. But if UB has the same problem that Buff State has, the same problem that Cornell has, and on, then there's really no drawback for the campuses to no incentive for them to solve this problem at that stage. So if you do want to solve it as a student because it's painful for you, fine, you can. You have to find the way to frame it and position it that it's worth it for the colleges, because of the reasons exactly what y'all just said. So that was really good. Another example I just want to press on a bit just for the sake of it. So Katie, I don't know, when you walked away, David tried to start a fight with you and said that he doesn't think parking is that bad. Just kidding, he didn't try to start a fight with you. But there's different perspectives on how bad parking really is. So that would be an example, David, and not that you were doing this, but I'm gonna again just pick on it. If you don't think the parking is bad, but the customers do, that's a problem they're having that you could help solve, right? So it's more about what that customer feels. And so in this call, I've got 1 and 1. So if I'm the entrepreneur, I'm not sure I have a problem to solve yet because I got 1 out of 2. So I'm going to go ask 10 more people and see where it falls. And if I'm like David and I'm like, I don't think this is a problem, but the 10 people I talk to do, I don't have to go after it because if I'm not interested, then I'm not interested. But I should be open to being proven wrong about my assumptions is the point. And that works in both directions. So if I do think it's a problem and I talk to 10 people and 9 of them say it's not that big a problem, I shouldn't force it, right? I should follow what I'm learning from my customers and from what's out there. So I'm curious now to ask for you guys, what are some problems or what is a problem that you have observed either in your life or the lives of others?
Besides, I would say that there needs to be a better way for the handicapped in order to enter in buildings. I'd say, well, I thought about this just why not just have a remote device or kind of almost not like a Bluetooth device, but one that will just open doors while you're within distance. if you have like the little little device with you.
Okay. So let's dig through that one and see if we can get to a problem statement that hits on these things. So who like if we make it customer centric, who's got the problem there?
Anyone that has like a disability and they aren't able to able to use their arms as much.
Okay. And the specific pain that they're having is what? Is it inefficiency, inconvenience, lack of access?
It's like the lack of like it's like painful for them. It's like inconvenience.
Okay. So people with disabilities, and this is specifically at UB?
I would say anywhere, because I would say anywhere.
Okay. So people with disabilities, how do we want to say it? Are inconvenienced by the lack of efficient access to public buildings.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
they're just have like a little device that will transmit a signal to the door that would open it for them instead of
Yeah.
having to press the button.
So what you're doing is normal, but that you're starting to talk about the solution already. And what we want to do here is get really clear on the problem first. And so if I go back to my how slide, so you've made an observation. And then so next, like what could you do to better flesh out and better understand this problem beyond that observation and assumptions that you're making to start, which are a great start? What would your next step be, Katie?
I would say after identifying the problem, then it's a matter of like trying to figure out who is the target audience and then eventually working up towards pitching it to a company that's willing to accept the idea.
Yeah, but so you started that with once I identify the problem, I'm saying let's do that. Let's identify the problem even deeper than we have to this point. So right now your problem is right here at step one, your observations. And I don't know, maybe you have talked to people with handicaps and special needs. How many of those would you say you've talked to about this?
I'd say, well, the sample size is pretty small, but so far about 10 people.
Okay.
A lot of my friends are wheelchair bound, or sometimes they have like paralysis. It's like paralysis as well.
Okay. So yeah, that's a pretty decent sample size to start, but certainly could be an additional step you could take is talking to them about their experience. Hey, what's it like for you? And you don't want to lead them to it. Like you kind of don't want to go in and say, would it be cool if you had a device that could get you in the door? Because then you're leading them to your solution already. You want to start with what's it like for you? What are the challenges for you around getting into buildings? And then letting them tell you. And then once you hear, from those 10 people or however many you talk to, you get their data, then you go to work and you compile that data into themes. And maybe they say exactly what you're saying. And now you've validated and you're onto it without spending time even building or developing yet. So that's what you want to do really throughout the entrepreneurial process. And it starts at defining the problem. You want to move as quickly as you can and as cheaply as you can, for lack of a better term. Like you don't want to spend a lot of time or a lot of money on stuff until you're more and more confident that it's right, that it's going to get you somewhere. In the beginning, you want to do all this low cost, kind of scrappy stuff, just talking to people, making these prototypes, things like that. So yeah, then you're already at this critically analyzed stage of, all right, based on what I'm hearing, what could a solution be? I just encourage you to challenge yourself and see if there is more you could do in here to flesh this out with the goal of getting more specific about what their problem is and fleshing out the pain, the frequency, how consequential it is even more. But thanks for sharing that and good luck working on it. David, do you have one in mind?
The one that I have in mind is backyard gardeners that grow excess amount of, like, say pumpkins or corn or whatever. What they'll sometimes do is they'll have like a little stand outside in front of their house to sell their excess produce. So, um, but if people don't know that they're there, then the produce just goes to waste.
Mm.
So I'm thinking the problem is how do we get um, home gardeners a bigger, better visibility for their product?
Yeah, I like how you're thinking about that. So is this on this call it vertical spectrum here? Where do you fall? Is this just an observation? Have you talked to some farmers yet?
Observation.
Okay.
I'm driving around. Sometimes I'll come across people that have a little sign out in front of their house saying eggs $3 a dozen, or have a little vegetable stand, and I can see vegetables in there, and I'm thinking to myself, huh, I wonder how successful they are. So I'm just observing to go to the interview stage.
Yeah, that's great. That's a beautiful start. And then, you know, when you talk to them again, their problem, like your how might we question there was pretty good, but it was still phrased from like how might we get them more exposure. That's
Mhm.
grounded on the foundation of they're having a problem of not enough exposure right now, or a problem of they want to make more money. And who knows what you'll find when you talk to them. And that's the whole reason we do it is almost always when we talk to people, I might even say always, we're surprised by what they tell us. Like you might go talk to these people and they go, no, I actually, my biggest issue is, I don't know, safety. I'm just making it up, right? People are driving by way too fast. And you're like, wow, but I thought you needed more demand. Oh no, we're making as much as we can make and we're happy. But these cars drive by too fast. And you're like, holy cow, I wasn't even close. Right. But until you talk to them, you don't know. Right. But if you hear things like, yeah, I have to throw out so much food. Well, would it be better for you if, you know, you could grow less? Well, no, I got to, make more money. I got to do this. Well, would it be better for you if we got more people in here? Oh, yeah, that would be good. But generally, you want to start with what pains are you having? What challenges are you having? What struggles are you having? And people generally love talking about that. Um, and you can go in with, hey, I've noticed a lot of these like as I drive by, I just get curious, like how business is going for you. It seems like a struggle. It seems like a good thing though, but how is it? Again, my point in all that rambling is you don't want to lead them too much. That, hey, I'm thinking about this solution. What do you think? You really want to start general when you talk to people and say something like, what is your experience around, and then the topic you're talking about, but only as a general topic. Anyone else on the call have a potential problem statement they're curious about, interested in, already working on? Right? So we went through some of the do's and don'ts. Remember those don'ts being, let me check with you guys. What's a takeaway from today? What'd you find valuable?
Don't lead people to your solution.
Beautiful. Thanks, David. Okay. Anybody, anything valuable today? Hope so.
I like how we talked about identifying a problem, just the steps you need to go through to make sure that you've actually identified the problem correctly, and some of the the points of like, is it specific, customer centric? Is it solving a painful problem? Is it a frequent problem? Is it a consequential problem of finding problems and pitching your solution?
Yeah, I think when you get to the pitching, you won't leave this behind. You'll take this with you, meaning not only does your experience as an entrepreneur start with what's the problem I'm solving, generally your pitch will too. And you'll get up there and say, farmers really struggle to move their products from the side of the road. And so they're throwing out a ton of food. And immediately people go, oh crap, that sucks. And now they want to hear what you're going to offer about it. Right. So your pitch will start with your problem as well, but it starts with your work, starts with what's the problem that you're solving. So yeah, just remember some of those don'ts. You really want to make sure that you're not building just a cool solution without a problem that it solves. You want to make sure that you're not just asking people what they want, but asking more what they're struggling with or what their challenges are, because you might end up with a better solution than they could think of. And you also want to make sure you're solving for and positioning for the people who are actually going to be able to pay for your product, right? Not a third party, unless you're going to tie that in. And then, yeah, we got on the screen here and we've touched on at the end how to get to a problem statement that really resonates. That is not, it starts with your observations and assumptions, but you want to challenge your assumptions. And again, that also goes all throughout the entrepreneurial process. Challenge your assumptions. You're going to be wrong about stuff. I'm wrong about stuff. Everybody's wrong about stuff. That's a good thing. The sooner you can uncover what you're wrong about and adjust based on data and what your customers are telling you, the stronger you're going to be. So you want to find where you're wrong. You want to find where you're right and be really honest about that with yourself. You get a strong, clear problem that's painful for people. You'll be off and running through the rest of the master classes on what to do about it. I think that's it for me, unless there's any other questions. Otherwise, thank you all. And thanks, Andy, for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan, for coming out, for kicking us off for this semester. It's greatly appreciated. And I think this is a phenomenal way for us to start the masterclass series. For those of you who are joining us, just a couple of things. If you are interested in practicing your pitch or running through your problem statement, CoLab does offer Innovate and Caffeinate on Thursdays from 4:30 to 5:30. Great way to just pop into the office and practice your pitch with a group of students who can kind of give you some feedback. So encourage it. That runs all semester. In addition, if you've not already considered it, we do have Startup Bootcamp running this weekend. Great way as well to pick up some more skill sets as well. So all details are on our website. That said, if you have not checked in yet, please do so based off of the link in the chat. But otherwise, just want to say thank you for coming out today and have a great rest of your evening.
Hope you feel better, Andy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope so too.